How do you reconcile female agency when it comes to traditional roles versus feminism?
We don't have enough time for that.
I hit you with a big question, I'm sorry.
No, I think I'll try and do it really quickly. So I think it's a really interesting question, very important question, and it's also one I think that I'm constantly trying to balance, because I am very happily and proudly Igbo. I love my culture, I love the language. You know, I was the child who constantly asked my father questions about where we came from, that kind of thing. But on the other hand, there are parts of Igbo culture that I just very fiercely quarrel with. And those are the parts that I think are misogynistic. And so for me, it's always about sort of wanting to change things from the inside. I don't believe that one should discard culture because it happens to have bits of it that are misogynistic. I think really that, you know, throughout human history, men made things to suit themselves and called it culture. And I think we can remake things to suit everyone and still call it culture. Yeah. And so an example is when my father died and my mother, one of the widowhood practices in Igbo land is that the woman shaves her head and she stays home for, I don't know, 4 months or something. She sits in ash. And so my siblings and I were like, no, our mother is not doing that. So my mother said, no, she's like, I'm not going to sit in ash, that's ridiculous. But she did say she wanted to shave her hair. And she said, I want to do it for daddy. And because my parents were such good friends and had such a lovely marriage and friendship, I came to accept it, right? My mother, and so for me, it kind of, the horrible color to that practice that I think is misogynistic was in some ways lifted because my mother had the choice. Obviously, she had the choice because she's educated and, you know, she has class privilege, which many women in the village don't, so they have to shave their head. So my mother made the choice and we respected it. I would not make that choice. You know, I'm married to a wonderful man who I love. I cannot think of him dying, but if that were ever to happen, I would mourn him in ways that for me would not feel that I was diminishing myself as a woman. So I think it's just, you know, for me always balancing things. The things I refuse to do in the village, right? And so they say I'm a troublemaker, but I'm like, no, that's nonsense. You know, I'm not going to, if men do not kneel, I'm not going to kneel, right? I will kneel if everybody kneels. Don't tell me women have to kneel, that's nonsense, that kind of thing, right? And, but you know, and change can happen. I find sometimes I engage with men, reasonable men, and those exist. And please don't put it on social media. And sometimes, you know, because I really do believe that human beings can change for the better. I really believe that. And so I'm constantly trying to sort of talk to men who have power to say to them, you know, you need to realize that women are full human beings, you know. And so things like the kola nut in Igbo land, where only men can bless the kola nut, and the kola nut is so central to Igbo culture. And once in my hometown, I said, no, this is wrong. So the old man there, after I had made an impassioned case, he said, all right, we cannot have a woman bless the kola nut, but because she's made this case, we will show the woman the kola nut. So usually they break it and they show only the men. But in this case, they showed the women in that small gathering. And I remember thinking, you know, a few more years and I will get this culture to be.
Have you experienced the practice of one-upmanship of grief?
Wow.
Oh, you should come to Nigeria. People will say, oh, your father died. My uncle, my father, my brother died. And they're like, yo, your mother died a few months after your father. My parents, my grandmother died on the same day. and you know, and you're like...
I'm a king, yes, I'm a king, I think I'm a king,